It's a rough life. Living up to Lassie, it's a rough life. Trying to be so classy when I'm going through the garbage for a midday snack. Knowing I'm in trouble when the folks get back. It's a rough life. When fleas live on your belly, it's a rough life. When people call you smelly, I'm developing a complex. I might need a shrink. They blame me every time that something starts to stink. It's a rough life. Begging for a cookie is a rough life. Never getting nookie. They chase me from the kitchen when I start to beg. They think that I'm perverted when I hug their leg.
Hi, welcome to the show. My name is Jesse Goldberg, and my guest today is Susaqn Lynn from District 57, a state representative.
That's right.
And where is this? Mount Juliet, right?
Mount Juliet, primarily Mount Juliet and the northern part of Lebanon. Have a little bit of the city of Lebanon, but that's about it.
So, and there's, I understand there's 99 of you people, right?
There are 99 of us from all over the state. There's 95 counties in Tennessee and 99 House members and 33 senators.
So you're a House member?
I'm a House member.
Were you ever a senator?
No, no.
But you've always been a House
People
member?
usually go from the House to the Senate and not from the Senate to the House. I mean, they could, but the House is a 2-year term and the Senate is a 4-year term.
When's the first
so
time
it's not real attractive.
When's the first time you were elected to this thing?
In 2002.
2002?
2002. I was fighting the income tax out on the street and in 2001 and 2000, and then in 2002 I was actually a candidate out there fighting that income tax.
So you got into this because you didn't want state income tax?
Basically, my parents were really politically active. They were very active with the Republican Party, and my mother was active with Republican women. And they always said to me, never stop paying attention. It's always good to have a healthy skepticism of your government and the people that represent you.
So where?
So I was always involved.
But you're not from Nashville, though, are you, right?
I'm not. I was born in Philadelphia and raised in sort of upstate New York. And,
upstate New York, where?
Newburgh.
Really?
Newburgh, yeah, same place.
Oh.
Yeah.
I went to school in Oneonta, you know what that is?
Oh, I do know where Oneonta is, but that's way upstate.
Right.
Compared to where we were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so...
We were on the Hudson.
When did you go to Florida or something?
Yes, yes. We lived in Florida for 5 years and loved it. It was really nice. Our children were young then, and it's just a great place to raise little children.
Where did you meet your husband, Mike?
Good to be, you know, young in Florida, and then when you get old, you go back. So we'll go back.
Where'd you meet Mike?
I met Michael in New York. We were both raised in Newburgh, and we probably met throughout our life at different times, and we just didn't know it.
Wait a second. Mike's from Newburgh?
Mike's from Newburgh.
Really?
He was actually born there. I wasn't.
Oh, so you met in New York City?
No, Newburgh.
Where? In Newburgh, New York.
Yes.
Okay, I get it. Okay. So anyway, and you came to Tennessee when?
1997.
97?
For Michael's work. Michael's work brought us here.
So he was a
I know my
stockbroker.
work keeps me here, keeps us here.
Right.
So we can't leave.
Explain the Assembly versus the Senate. You're in the Assembly, right?
Well, it's called the General Assembly.
The whole thing is the Assembly?
The whole thing is the General Assembly. That's the House and the Senate.
Oh, okay.
That's the General Assembly. And the General Assembly, our official duty is to, you know, our really official duty is to plan the state budget and vote on it, or help plan the state budget. The governor really plans it, and he gives it to us, and we mess with it, and then we vote on it.
But does it work the same way the federal government, I mean, does it not work same way the federal government doesn't work?
Oh, no, we have a much better body. I really think we do. I mean, we work much better together. Sure, we have our ideological differences, but we probably only have about 5 knockdown, drag out, partisan fights a year. And the rest of the stuff isn't really that partisan. It's sort of like big city versus rural area, you know, country versus suburbia.
But is it the same way whereas you pass a bill in the House, then it goes to the Senate?
Yeah, well,
or is it all the way around?
It can originate in either house. A bill has to be filed in the House and the Senate. Same bill has to be filed in the House and the Senate. And you can run it first in the House, you can run it first in the Senate. It doesn't matter. But it has to pass the House and the Senate, and then it goes to the governor's desk, and he will sign it, or he might just let it become a law. The ones
What do
he
you mean?
signs.
What do you mean? If he doesn't sign within a certain period of time, it just becomes law?
Yes, after 10 days, it just becomes law. And usually, you know, if he's out of town, he might not be able to sign the bills, and you know, usually he doesn't issue that many vetoes, so he might just let them become law. But the ones that he signs, you know, he probably feels very strongly about them. If he's not so strong, he might just let it become law. He might issue a veto. He did a veto last year.
Did you know the governor, Governor Haslam?
Before he was elected?
Do you know him now?
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to say,
Does everybody there
he
know
is
him?
a wonderful person. His wife is an absolutely wonderful person. Tennessee is extremely lucky to have Governor Haslam. I mean it. Just a wonderful Christian man, and his wife is a wonderful Christian woman.
What about the guy before him?
I'm telling you.
Who
Governor
was that?
Bredesen?
Bredesen.
I knew Governor Bredesen, too.
Wow,
and
you know
he
everybody.
is, well, you have
He
to know
was
the
from New
governor.
Jersey, I remember.
You have to know the governor. You have
But
to know the
wasn't
governor.
Haslam a mayor of Chattanooga or something like that?
No, Knoxville.
Who was the mayor?
He
Mayor
was
of Chattanooga, was that the senator?
Senator Corker.
Corker, okay,
Senator
right.
Corker, that's
See how
right.
much I know?
Well, yeah.
All right, so what, is everything just majority voters, a two-thirds thing, or what is that?
Most of the votes are just, you have to have a simple majority. Now, if it's a major vote like changing the Constitution or something like that, you might have to have a supermajority. If it's a procedural motion, some procedural motions need a supermajority. Some do.
Supermajority mean
And
two-thirds? Or?
that would be 2/3 of the body. And those are generally things that limit the rights of the body. So if you are going to cut off debate or something like that, that takes a supermajority because you're limiting the rights of the other members to talk or whatever.
Right. So two-thirds would be 66. In your, how many senators are 33?
There's 33 in the
So it's
Senate.
2/3
Now,
of
we don't work
22.
together. I mean, we don't work in the same rooms. Like the Senate is the Senate and the House is the House.
Right.
And so the House has committees. I think we have 11. We've kind of
So what
trimmed them
committees are
down.
you on?
I'm on the Consumer and Human Resources Committee, and I'm the chairman of the Consumer and Human Resources General Subcommittee. And we have anything to do with consumer laws, just consumer laws or human resources laws, like workers' comp, unemployment, things like that come to my committee. And then I'm also on the Insurance and Banking Committee. So I'm on the business committees. So I have a degree in economics, and I just have always done the business committees. Before
Really?
that, I
Where'd you
did
go to school?
government operations. I was chairman of the Government Operations Committee, and I was on that committee for 8 years. And that's the regulatory committee. That is the committee that does all the regulation. You know how people are always sick of regulation?
Right.
That's the committee. If you are worried about them regulating something and it's coming up for a vote, you call your member of Government Operations Committee because that's what we do. And I was there for 8 years, and that is a heavy lifting committee. So now I'm on simpler committees, kind of. Like, to me, there's not as much work because the Government Operations Committee was so much work. But
What-
the Senate, they don't work with, like, they
Well,
don't
what do
work
they
with
do?
us. They
Same
have their
stuff?
own committees. They do their own thing. They, you know, they will hear a bill and consider it and vote on it, totally separate from the House.
Well, you're voted in every 2 years, right? What about them?
House members are every 2 years. We are always running for election.
What about
always.
Senate?
The Senate is every 4 years. And people will say to me all the time, don't you wish you were 4 years? And you know what, personally, I would enjoy that, but you know what, I don't think that's good. And as a voter myself, I think it's better that the House has to run every 2 years because I think it keeps us sharper, it keeps us working harder, it keeps us more accountable to the people.
And you can use the signs over and over again.
And we could use the signs over and over, of course. But I really do. I think it's much better that we run every 2 years. And same with the U.S. House. And you know, just so people understand, we work in Nashville. We are at the Tennessee General Assembly in Nashville. So when you talk about state sovereignty and states' rights and that the states have the right to run themselves, this is where it's at. This is state government.
So you work in that
We're not in
building that looks like
Washington.
the Capitol building?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the building you go into all the time?
Yes, that is the War Memorial Building. So the Capitol is sort of across the street, and the War Memorial Building is where our offices are and our committee rooms are. Now, across the street, though, is our big chamber, and that's where we actually meet to vote, take a final vote on the legislation. We call that session.
How often do you have legislation? How often do you vote?
Well,
How many times a year?
The General Assembly, per the Constitution, we are in session 90 days per 2-year General Assembly. A General Assembly is 2 years. So we try to split it 45 days one year, 45 days the next year.
45 days is all that you're in?
It seems longer,
This is a total
right?
part-time job then.
It is a part-time job. It is. I have another job.
You have to support yourself.
I do. I have 2 jobs. I work for a corporation. I do regulatory compliance for them. We make consumer products, and I make sure all of our products are in compliance with international law and federal law and state law. So that's what I do in my real life. And then I'm in the General Assembly, and my husband always likes to say if I could just get her to take one more job on the weekends, he wouldn't have to work at all. And so I'm looking for a paper route.
So, so when you are in session, what part of the year is that?
Session starts in January, and it concludes. We try to get out of there as quickly as possible. It should conclude in April. Now, when I say we're only in session 45 days, you say, well, January to April, that's longer than 45 days. That's because we meet 2 or 3 days a week for session to vote on the final vote of the legislation. Committees, though, we have committees on other days of the week.
What happens if something comes up in May?
It waits until next year.
Waits until January?
Well,
What, an emergency or something?
If it was an emergency, the governor would call a special session. He would.
So from April all the way till December, nothing happens?
No.
Is that the
No.
same way with the Senate too?
Yes, yes. Our schedules match each other. They mirror each other. And that's the way it ought to be, though. The people in Washington, they meet way too much. They're always making law and changing things and tinkering with things. It's terrible.
All right,
Do we need more laws? Do you really think we need more laws? I don't. I think leave it alone.
So let's get to some issues. What's the major issue that's going on? Like what's one of the issues that?
Well, a big major issue that was.
Wait, let me ask. I've read in the paper today something about guns. There's guns in the parks. Is that a major issue?
Well, we already
See how
have guns in
informed I
parks.
am?
We already have guns in parks. We have a law that says that the local governments, they can choose if they want to allow guns in their parks, they can. The federal government changed the law.
The local cities, you mean you're talking about?
The local cities, yeah.
Okay.
And the counties. The federal government changed the law a long time ago to allow, maybe like 5 years ago, to allow guns in the federal parks because a lot of people were going into these huge federal parks and getting raped and killed and disappearing. And so the federal government decided, you know what, we don't have enough rangers to protect people, so we'll just let them bring their guns. And after they did that, you know, we kind of thought, well, you know, why don't we allow guns in parks? Because the only people who really bring guns into parks right now are the bad people. So why don't we let the good people be able to defend themselves? And so now there's a fair fight.
It's a fair fight.
It's a fair fight.
That's true, it's a fair fight.
If you go to a,
well, that was my
if
issue.
you have a gun in a park.
You have some other issues. I mean, you said you originally started to run because of taxes, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. Well, the income tax fight. Yes.
Well, how many states? You might not know this, but how many states don't have a state income tax? I know there's Florida and there's Texas and there's Tennessee. Are there any others you know about?
No, I think there is only like 3 or 4. There's not too many. I
Right.
think there's one other, and I can't remember which one.
So do we have enough money without state income taxes?
We do. We do. Yeah, we're doing fine. We have a constitutional requirement to balance our budget every year, and we do. We put money in reserves every year, and we get that done. Now, of course, I say we do have enough money. There are people who would always want to spend more money. There are more ideas that cost money than you can believe. But you just, just like at home with your family, you can't spend more than you make. And,
I do, but I don't.
well, lots of people do. But you try not to because you have to be prudent.
Right. What about 10 Care? Is that anything to do with what you do?
Oh, of course, yeah. 10 Care is a state program. It's our state Medicaid program, but we have an agreement with the federal government. So the legislature doesn't have very much at all to do with 10 Care because most of it is an agreement between our governor and the federal government, most of it.
How does that fit in with the Obamacare Affordable Care Act and 10 Care?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a mess right now, but I don't think most people even know what's going on. I know that I thought I was going to get my Blue Cross canceled, but then they said they're not going to cancel it. They're going to let me go until October, and then they're going to make a decision whether or not they can. They will just mirror another policy like the Obamacare policy, so I can have maternity care and stuff like that.
Oh, really? Are you
Right.
thinking of having a baby?
Well,
have maternity care.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things
Honestly,
they have to
isn't
have,
that crazy?
right?
I know, but why would a man need maternity care?
But how does it work with? Do you have any idea how that works between what's going to happen in this state?
We're really just finding that out and figuring that out. I serve on the Insurance and Banking Committee, so a lot of those bills are coming through my committee. And, you know, truthfully, Jesse, the states really allowed this situation to get so messed up. And before they ever passed Obamacare or Affordable Care Act, what the states should have done is just sit down, unpack our laws, and then only, you know, put back the laws that truly, you know, protect someone's life or their safety or prevent fraud. There is so much rent seeking that goes on.
So much what?
Rent seeking that goes on.
What does that mean, rent
It's an
seeking?
economic term. It's when people come to get things that they, you know, don't really deserve. That, you know, they're trying to take advantage.
Free stuff?
Yeah, they're trying to take advantage.
I'm always up for free stuff.
Well, I know, but if someone's freely giving it away, willingly giving it
What did
away,
I
that's
hear?
one thing. But
What
if
did I
they're
hear?
not, you don't want someone to just come and take it from you.
The best thing a politician can do is the
Nothing.
way they buy your vote is they give you free stuff with your own money or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
That's not the right phrase, but it was something like that.
Exactly. My cousin wrote me last night when the president was on, and he said, I just wish I could tell the president that those of us who work for a living are sick and tired of supporting those who vote for a living.
Well, that's funny.
I was
he
like,
can't-
amen.
One thing he said that I really was laughed at. He said that I don't know anybody. This is him saying, I don't know anybody who wouldn't rather have a job. And I'm saying, all I know is people who wouldn't rather have a job.
I know. When you can, you know, choose leisure or choose work, you know,
Right.
most people want to choose leisure, and it's only
Right.
the pressure on them that makes them choose work. They say, okay, I'll choose work.
Right. Most people would rather take a free ride if they could get it.
Yeah.
I would take a free ride if I can get it.
Well, yeah, but then you have a conscience and you say, well, how am I getting that free ride? Other people are working to support me. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. Most people have a conscience, thank God, and they do that. But we're getting to a
Right.
point where they don't.
Right.
So.
Well, so we don't know what's going to happen with the 10 care or the other stuff. We just don't know yet, right?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, there are people who want us to expand Medicaid. The governor has already said that he's not going to expand Medicaid like that. So I don't know.
Well,
what
I know
will
people who
happen.
have 10 care, and if you can get it and qualify for it, they're happy with it. You know, they're
Well,
pretty happy
yeah,
with it.
well, yeah. I'm
If
sure
you
they
qualify with
are.
it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to some more issues here before we run out of time.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about this thing about medical marijuana. I know
Okay.
marijuana was made legal in Washington and Colorado, right?
Well,
But not legal in federal government, but they're leaving everybody alone.
I think in Washington it's a little bit more liberal. People don't realize that in Colorado, when the legislature passed it, it was permissive, which means that the local governments get to vote on whether or not they want to permit the sale of marijuana or the free use of it in their city. And only 2 cities in Colorado have actually approved marijuana,
Boulder and Denver?
I guess, yeah.
I know Boulder must be one of them.
So the rest of Colorado is like, does everybody really think that the whole state is stoned? No.
I lived in Colorado for 3 years. And
It was the whole state stoned?
No, it was a very conservative state when I lived there.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
That's
it
good
was,
to know.
and I don't know, it's changed, I guess. Except for Boulder was very liberal. You know, the Boulder, Denver area, but everything else was very conservative.
This bill has been around for a long time to legalize medical marijuana.
Well, what is wrong with medical marijuana? It seems like,
Well-
other than the fact that it might get abused by other people, but if marijuana is the thing that helps them feel better, Well, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Well, you know what? There's another bill that forced me to do a lot of research because I've always just dismissed it. I've always just like, this is just a gateway for the free sale of marijuana. And then that's a disaster because you've got people going to work and they're stoned and, the habitual users, they get dull and they're working with machinery and they cut themselves and the workers' comp rates go through the roof. It's just a disaster. But there's another bill. Oh, terrible. There's another bill called the Industrial Hemp Bill. And this bill caused me to do some research. Senator Frank Nicely filed it this year. And I called him up. I said, Frank, before you go filing bills, would you just call the rest of us, please? And he said, no, hemp isn't like marijuana. It does not make you high. It doesn't have THC. But there's a lot of uses for hemp. He said, for instance, it's illegal to grow, but we have so many products that are made of hemp. He said in Germany, they're making car panels for Mercedes-Benz out of hemp. And I was like, what? Well, he sent me some information, and I spent a whole weekend just looking at this information, actually 2 weekends. And then I did a lot of research on my own. And it turns out that hemp has the same thing in it that the people who use medical marijuana feel relief from, and that is called cannabinoids. Hemp has cannabinoids, but it doesn't have THC. So the THC is what is in marijuana that makes you high. The cannabinoids are the antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial.
So that's
it
good
helps
stuff.
with pain. The cannabinoids are what gives the relief for those medical symptoms that ail people. They are in industrial hemp, but there's no THC, so someone won't get high. Now, the thing is about industrial hemp is that the people who want medical marijuana or they want to smoke marijuana, they fight the legalization of hemp, the growing of hemp. And that is because the pollen from the hemp fertilizes their marijuana and weakens their THC until it's gone. So I was actually talking to the Commissioner of Agriculture about this, and what would happen is if we legalized industrial hemp, is farmers would be given permits and we'd know where their farms are. We have the GPS coordinates. So when the TBI goes up, they would know if they're looking at a hemp farm or if they're looking at marijuana because they would have the GPS coordinates of all those hemp farms. Now, would someone who, would a farmer maybe grow marijuana in the middle of the hemp field? No, they probably wouldn't because the hemp more than likely would fertilize the marijuana and weaken the marijuana, and it wouldn't have the THC and it wouldn't have the ability to make someone high.
There's a profit motive behind all this stuff.
Oh yeah, I really think so. Or else they wouldn't fight the industrial hemp. They wouldn't promote the marijuana so much because the hemp has the cannabinoids. I happen to look on, what I do at work is I do a lot of research. And I went on the U.S. Patent Office website because I heard there were some patents for hemp. And so I started looking through the hemp patents, and a lot of them are medical patents for the cannabinoids, that they have medical benefits. And you can just go on the Federal Trade Commission's website. They have the Patent and Trademark Office. You can search patent applications and patents, and there are a lot of patent applications and patents for hemp and the cannabinoids in hemp, and they are medical applications that would help people.
I think it's a little odd. This is just my generalization. I don't know if it's true or not. But the people who are against cigarette smoking are the ones who are for
right?
marijuana. I don't get that. I'm not for either of them. I don't like either of them.
I don't get it either because marijuana, I mean, they're smoking it even without a filter.
Right.
I mean, cigarettes, they're mandated to have a filter, aren't they, I think? But they are smoking it without a filter, and yet they say, oh, for your health, smoke it.
Right, but if somebody needs something for their health and it makes them feel better if they can get it, Anyway, let's get to one. We're running out of time. Let's get to the legal funding issue you were talking about.
Oh, the legal funding. You're an attorney. Is that right?
Don't let anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Oh,
okay.
I won't.
All right.
I won't tell anybody. Legal funding is a bill that is in the committee that I chair and that I'm on. And you may or may not be familiar with it, but apparently there are people who will supply money to a plaintiff to get them through their lawsuit. So they will give the plaintiff money, maybe $5,000.
What do they get back for it?
If the plaintiff loses the lawsuit, they get nothing. Nothing.
Right.
If they win the lawsuit, then they get their money back plus interest. So the people who are the legal funders, they say this is an investment. I give you money.
I understand it,
If
yeah.
I win the lawsuit, I get back
So
money.
you're trying to make this illegal, or is that what
Well, there's people who want to make this illegal in Tennessee. And, you know, I mean, it's, you know, it's really a product that people who are pretty hard up for money would take, of course, because they have no other resources, they have no other money, and they need money to get through their lawsuit.
Is this for only personal injury, or is this for any kind of lawsuit?
Right now, it's for any kind of lawsuit. They want to limit it. They want to keep corporate lawsuits out of this funding, and they also want to keep workers' comp lawsuits out of this funding. So it would basically be for personal injury or...
Well, most personal injury lawyers, they take it on contingency, and they, you know, if they lose, they lose.
Well, there's some people, maybe they get injured and they cannot work, and they have no other source of income. Like most people, maybe if they're injured and they can't work, they live with someone else, and that person has a source of income, so they're fine. They can hold out. Or maybe they have a credit card, or they can take a mortgage.
One of the things about disability that's really messed up is that you have to, in order to show you have a disability, you can't work, because if you work, it looks like, hey, you're working.
Right.
So meanwhile, you have to, and disability takes so long to get through that you have to starve, and like 15% of them get approved on the first try. So you end up starving, and just to prove that you're disabled.
Yeah.
Anyway, just that.
Oh, I know. So what happens is there are some people who they have no means of support, and you know they have this lawsuit going, and they need money to pay their bills. Well, you know what happens with attorneys in deposition. Hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. How's it going? Are you having trouble paying your bills? Well, yeah, I sure am. Are you working? Well, no, I'm not. So the lawyers for the other side, they know how hard up you are, and so they'll make you an offer, you know, maybe make it low because you're desperate, and you'll settle. So this product, the legal funding product, allows these people to maybe hold out for 2 or 3 more months.
Okay, we have to get going. My guest today has been Susaqn Lynn, of the 57th District State Representative, the Honorable Susaqn Lynn. And we'll be back next week with another edition of the show.
Living up to Lassie, it's a rough life. Trying to be so classy when I'm going through the garbage for a midday snack. Knowing I'm in trouble when the folks get back. It's a rough life. When fleas live on your belly, it's a rough life. When people call you smelly, I'm developing a complex. I might need a shrink. They blame me every time that something starts to stink. It's a rough life. Begging for a cookie is a rough life. Never getting nookie. They chase me from the kitchen when I start to beg. They think that I'm perverted when I hug their leg.